So first of all, Pastor Chuck, thank you so much for doing the interview.
It's just a joy to do it.
Everybody's wondering how you're feeling and how you're coping with the cancer.
You know, I couldn't feel any better. It's just, I don't even consider it. Just go on with life.
And what stage cancer is it?
Well, it was third stage when they first, took their test.
And what is that? What does that mean, third stage?
I don't really know. I think fourth stage is the worst, but third stage it's fairly developed, but it's now it's just almost non-existent.
Praise the Lord for that.
Yes, definitely.
So it started out like the size of like maybe like a golf ball or something, and how big was it?
Somewhat like that. I know that it's reduced tremendously. I mean, where I don't even think that they see it anymore. It's just
Really?
right.
Wow. Are you on chemo still?
I'm still on, but only once every 3 weeks now. So they've really cut it way down. It's just a maintenance is all I'm on presently.
So I suppose the doctors are very pleased.
Oh my, yes, yeah, they're very pleased with it.
And it's very unusual, probably, right?
Well, yes, they are amazed at what's happening.
So you're not in any kind of pain?
No pain at all. In fact, Kay often asks me, "Are you in pain?" No, no pain. I don't feel anything really.
And were you in pain originally?
I was never in pain, no.
Oh, good. How did you discover that you had the lung cancer?
Well, actually, I guess that the doctors discovered that when they were taking some x-rays and all. And so that's where, and then they gave me the CAT scans and so forth, and that's where they really discovered it.
And that was the beginning of 2012 when you were diagnosed.
That is correct.
And what do you think that the Lord let you have this for? What was the reasoning, if there is any reasoning?
I really don't know, except that perhaps just to let people see that you can go through something like this without fear, without any worries or concerns. As I've often referred to it, as just a little bump in the road, and it doesn't really alter my lifestyle at all. I mean, I just go on and don't cut back on anything. Just go for it.
A lot of people have cancer and illnesses, and how would you tell them, because you've dealt with it so well, can you give them some sort of advice how they can also deal with it?
Yes, it's just a confidence that my life is in God's hands, and I can't alter that. I don't want to, and I know that all things are working together for good to those who love God and are called according to his purposes, and never have doubted that. And so it just is one of those things. You just know that he's in control. I'm not.
So he's allowing this to happen to you
For a reason.
for a reason, maybe because all eyes and ears are on you.
I think so.
As far as, and then wow, Chuck is dealing with it in that way, and then it glorifies God.
I believe that that's very true, and it isn't a specter that you're fearing. You just go ahead and you just live, and people can see that you're living a full life, and that you're not afraid, and you're not trying to climb in a hole someplace and hide, but you just enjoy walking with the Lord.
Do you plan on ever retiring?
No, I don't plan on retiring, no.
And so you feel the Lord wants you to keep going until...
As long as he gives me strength, I'll go for it.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing that was really amazing is that, well, first you had the stroke.
Yes.
And then right after the stroke, really pretty much, you were back on the pulpit preaching.
True.
And a lot of pastors would have not done that because they would have been, there's a lot of people watching you on Sunday morning and Sunday evening. And they would have had the pride, which you kept going. And it didn't matter if you'd forget a word or, Can you tell us about that? Because that was really lovely.
That is a difficult part of this in that, I do not, I've always had a good memory. And when you're up there and you're, the thought or the idea sort of slips your mind, it's a little difficult, but, the Lord comes through and it works out.
Were you ever like, oh, I forgot something? Or are you just calm and...
Well, I think I'm just calm up there. There was a good point that I forgot to make in my message last Sunday, and that bothered me a bit. But I was able to. The fact that I do 3 services, if I miss it in one, I can pick it up in the others.
That's true. Because that's really interesting, and I think that we're all watching it and praying for you and hoping.
Yes. And I think that that's great to, bring the people into it where they can feel a part of it and just share, the burden of it and all. And it's just, it's just very comforting to know that so many people do care and that they are praying for you and all. And thus it gives you tremendous confidence.
Well, that's one of the reasons we're doing this, because millions of people, literally, are praying for you and are wondering what's going on specifically. And you're so wonderfully humble, you don't really, oh, I'm doing great, so we want to know. So what have you learned from having cancer?
Well, you learn that life is fragile and there are limits to what you can do, and you just sort of learn to, roll with the punches, It's just one of those things that you have to face, and with his strength and his help, you can face it. It's no fear, it's just commitment. And I think that that's the key to life, is you learning to commit and not to try to control, but to commit. And I think when you try to control, you are always in a frenzy and things don't always go as you would like them to go. But if you just commit and you say, well, this is the way it is and I'll just live with it, you can.
The age-old question, why do bad things happen to good people or God's people?
I don't know that it's a bad thing. If he's allowed it to happen, he has a purpose for it happening. And so I believe that good will come out of it. And so I really don't believe that bad things happen to God's people, that he has a purpose in everything that does happen to us. And so you just say, well, Lord, I don't understand it. And I think that's where the problem is. We want to understand why God has allowed things to happen. I don't need to understand it. He's allowed it, and so I'll just accept it, and I know that he's going to work something good out of it.
And that would go for anything.
That goes for anything, right.
Not just health issues.
No, that's life itself. All things work together for good. Not some things. All things work together for good to those who love God.
So you get through all these things so well, is because you're just focusing on the Lord. The Lord allowed it.
That's right.
And so therefore he knows it's happening.
That's right.
And he's going to take care of it for the greater good.
And he has a reason for it, yes.
So we need to learn.
Yes.
Just to accept it.
Trust, right.
Trust.
It's the whole idea. Trust and commitment.
Just so hard for us to do sometimes.
Yes, it's very true. But it's harder not to do it.
That's true.
If you don't trust, then you're going to be worried. You're going to, have anxieties and all of these things. But if you just learn to trust, you don't have to know. You just say, well, he knows, and that's what's important.
Was there a time where you had to work on that, sort of speak?
I think we all do. I think that that's part of growing in our walk and relationship with God.
And was there anything that you remember just clicked, where you then just really just gave over and trusted in the Lord under any circumstances that he put you through?
I don't know that there was one of those automatic kind of, transitions. I think that it's a slow process, but then, over time you just see that it has developed, and you just are excited that fact that, you know, you can just accept these things, and it doesn't matter, and you know, you're not going to worry about it, you're not going to fret over it, you're just going to say, well, it's all in his hands, and he's working out his plan and his purpose, and I'm satisfied with that.
And the more you give over to that, probably the easier it is.
Oh, very definitely. Very definitely.
Because that's a hard thing for people to do. We can say we're trusting, but are we really trusting when we're worrying and when we're fearful and all these things that happen? So just prayer and trust and...
Faith and fear are mutually exclusive. If I have faith, I won't fear. If I have fear, it shows that I don't have faith. They're mutually exclusive. And so I just have that faith that it's all in his hands. He's taking care of it. He knows better than I know what's best for me. And so, Lord, go for it and have it, you know.
Sure does make it easier.
It sure does.
So why do we have to suffer?
I think that that's one of those age-old questions that we'll never get the answers completely or fully. But yet, on the other hand, I don't know of anything that builds character more than suffering. I think that a person that never suffers usually are very shallow. And I think that that's where depth comes in character, is because of the suffering. And thus, you look at suffering as you know, a plus. I mean, it is helping to develop character.
What has suffering produced in your life?
I think that it has produced a depth of character. It has produced surely trust in the Lord. We don't always understand why God does what he does, how he does it, and so forth. And so it just develops that kind of a trust. Well, Lord, you're much wiser than I am, and you know better than I do. And so if you see it this way and all, I'm for it, and I commit to it.
What is your prayer in regards to your illness? Do you pray for yourself?
The prayer is, Lord, your will be done, and be glorified in my life, however.
So you don't pray for yourself for your illness?
Well, you know, if the Lord can get glory from it, good. You know, I'm for it. And evidently he is, because he's giving me the strength to go through it. And I think that that encourages a lot of people, because, you know, they have conditions that are considered less dramatic than mine, and yet, you know, they're in real panic, whereas here I am, and, you know, just taking it as it comes, and not trying to dictate to the Lord what he should do, or all in my life.
So what do you tell people when they pray and nothing happens? Or in their eyes, nothing happens?
I tell them that oftentimes our timing is off. In other words, we say nothing has happened, but we don't know. And things are happening that we don't really understand. And I think that we make a mistake in thinking that God has to answer our prayers just as we pray them. In other words, I think sometimes God says, wait. I think that God sometimes says no. And he knows what is best for us. And I don't try to insist that God do things for me. I really do believe that the greatest prayer is, Lord, not my will, but your will be done. And even Jesus prayed that. And so I don't think you can improve on that one. And so if it doesn't happen just like I want it to happen, or ask that it happen, I don't worry about that. I leave that with him. He knows much better than I know what is best.
Chuck, do you have any comforting Bible verses for people that are going through, you know, any illness?
Well, I think that all things work together for good to those who love the Lord and are the called according to his purpose. And this is one I fall back on myself, and I use it to encourage others, you know, that God has a purpose in this, and just look for the purposes of God to be fulfilled. yield yourself to those purposes of God. And don't try to control it, but let God have the controls and let him do what he knows best.
And what would be some favorite books that you have in your library, or favorite authors?
Well, of course, I like G. Campbell Morgan and his books. I have, I think, just about everything he's written. And Dr. Lloyd Jones, also from London. And I enjoy so much his writings. He's just such a great Bible expositor. And so I really love his books. I love a little book called Halley's Bible Pocket Handbook. It's just a one little single volume, but it is so chock full of interesting information. And I use it quite a bit as just a little reference book. And so I love that one also. But then I have my other authors that I love to read, and I just enjoy having a huge library, and I get lost in it. I get started reading, and time just goes so fast.
So you're a big reader. You like to read.
I love to read. I love to learn.
And you're still reading and still learning.
Well, when I quit reading and learning, I'm going to just, I'll be gone.
Okay. And how is Kay doing?
Well, Kay is doing, I think, pretty well. She has had, of course, the problems of forgetfulness, and she actually, it goes almost in stages. In other words, for a while she really dropped quite a bit and then leveled off, and so she's been in a level stage for quite a while now, and I don't see that she's getting any worse, and I think that she's beginning to actually improve some, and so that's very encouraging also.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
And is it a type of what would you say that she has?
Well, of course, it's I think just the typical memory loss. I mean, she has keen memory of things that happened years ago, but oftentimes can't remember what was our conversation 5 minutes ago. And so it's sort of unusual that way, and that she will forget, that we just had a discussion. And so she'll oftentimes ask the same question over and over again, or she'll relate a story and then immediately relate it again and forget that she had just related it to us. And so it's sort of a quirky kind of a thing. But, it's an interesting thing in that she's always been so sharp and so independent, and she is now sort of dependent on me, and I like it.
And I've seen her. She looks beautiful.
Oh, yes, she is beautiful.
You would never know.
No. In fact, people, we're out together and, in conversations and all, people don't have any idea of what's really happening.
So it's you guys are, it's good then.
Oh, yes, definitely. And 60-some years together, so it's...
What a blessing, huh?
Oh, my, yes. Our friends, when we got married, said it'll never last. So we just determined we're going to prove them wrong.
And then you were together for 6 weeks before you got married, right?
Well, yes. So we got a jump start on it.
You were trusting in the Lord way back then, 6 weeks, and she's so wonderful,
Yeah, well, I went off and fasted and prayed before I asked her to marry me.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I went up to the mountains above Ventura and camped out by a little stream and just waited on the Lord and seeking the Lord's guidance and all, and His direction, and if this was His will.
And He gave you a clear answer.
Yes. came back and proposed.
How do you communicate with God?
I actually do it in a very natural way. It's like I communicate to my closest friend, and I just talk to him like I'm talking to my closest friend. And so it's just a very natural, open kind of a communication that I have with him.
Anywhere, anytime?
Anywhere, anytime. But mainly at night, when I'm lying there in bed, is when I really enjoy communicating with him.
Is there anything you say before you pray?
No, I just, bring out anything that might be an issue in my mind for guidance, direction, for wisdom, for strength and all. And I just am very frank with the Lord and tell him what I feel I need and ask him for his help and for his guidance. And I just sort of picture him as, sitting in the chair next to me and just a conversation with him. It's just not more than just talking, conversation.
And have you ever audibly heard his voice, or?
Yes, on one occasion, I really feel that I audibly heard the voice of God.
Would you like to share that, or you don't have to?
Well, it was a interesting experience, and I was talking to God, and I said it was my mother was dying of cancer, and so I said, and she was in a lot of pain, and I said, Lord, I'm no hero, but it hurts to see her in such pain, and so I would like you to just take the pain that she's experiencing and put it on me. Let me bear it even maybe for today. I'm no hero. I don't want it forever, but just for this day, just give her some relief and let me bear it for her. And the Lord spoke to me and he said, Chuck, that's a very foolish request. I bore her pain for her already. And I said, oh Lord, forgive me. I realize you have, and I thank you for it. And my mother gave a great sigh of relief, and she said, it's gone. And I said, oh, praise the Lord. But just there, and she didn't feel any more pain. And so he was just, but he told me, that's a foolish request, Chuck. I bore her pain for her already.
Wow, that's a good one.
That was very special to me.
I know that you've said before that you have a guardian angel.
Yes.
Do you feel like you know him, or you just know that he's there?
I just know that he's there because the scriptures say that he will give his angels charge over thee to keep thee in all thy ways, to bear thee up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. And I've been in critical kind of conditions where I don't know how I got out of it unscathed, but I did. And I just figured, well, the guardian angel was there. And so I just say, thanks, pal.
So you've known that he's been there your whole life?
Well, he surely kept me from a lot of scrapes, I'll tell you.
Do you think that there's more than one angel around you?
Oh, I don't know. But one is sufficient. You take a look in the Bible, how one angel wiped out a whole regiment of the enemy troops, and so, I'll take one.
That's true. You got an extra good one, though.
Yes. An extra busy one.
An extra busy one, exactly. So what do you think your biggest struggle in life has been?
Probably knowing the will of God. I think that that's a difficult thing, that oftentimes we don't really know just how God would have me to respond or to react in a certain situation. And so that is a great concern to me.
What's your greatest fear?
The greatest fear is stepping out of God's will and you know, just trying to get my will done instead of his will. And I think that's a common problem with many people. You know, it's not, Lord, thy will be done, but my will be done. And I think that in our prayers, you know, where I'm insisting that God do it my way rather than just being open and knowing that God, if there's a better way, you know, I'm just trusting you to use the better way and you don't have to follow my way.
So what has been your biggest misconception in life or with anything, or with your walk with the Lord? Or
I think that probably in the earlier years, thinking that I could do it on my own, thinking that I had the answers, and you know, to come to the realization I can't and I don't have the answers, and thus I think that that was probably one of the greatest shocks and all, to realize that. But yet I think that it was so important to come to that place of understanding that I don't know and I don't understand.
what is your biggest blessing?
Biggest blessing is my family. I think, you know, God has so blessed me with a beautiful, lovely wife and children that just all love the Lord. And so, you know, what do I have? 19 grandkids and 31 great grandkids, and just all of them serving and following the Lord. What a joy and what a blessing.
What would you like to be remembered by?
Probably just my love for the Lord, my love for his word, and my love for his people.
And how would you like us to pray for you, Pastor Chuck?
Well, I think that the most important thing is the will of God be done in my life. And, you know, that surely is, you know, the most important thing for me is that God uses me and that his will is being done in and through my life.
If you were to pass before the rapture, and the rest of us are stuck here, can you give us any words of wisdom, or what can you tell us?
Well, I think that the idea, of course, is to know that he is coming soon and to just remain faithful. The Lord did say, when I return, will I find faith on the earth? And that was a concern to him, because the Bible says that evil days are going to wax worse and worse. And thus, to stay the course, you know, just keep following after him, knowing that it is a life that is worthwhile.
To us as Christians, it's obvious that God exists and Jesus Christ is Lord. But how come there's so many people that are so blind? Like, how do you explain the blindness? How do you explain that? What is that called when you could talk to somebody about something and they just completely don't get it? I mean, how can you define that spiritual blindness?
The Bible tells us that the God of this world, which is Satan, has blinded their eyes that they cannot see the truth. And so you need to realize that it is a spiritual thing, and that their eyes are blinded by Satan, and they just cannot, though they might even want to, they cannot see the truth as long as they are under Satan's blinding powers.
And how do they get to know the truth?
Well, I think that we as Christians, through prayer, can free them from the prejudices and all that they have. And I think that that's really the thrust of prayer when we're praying for those that are not saved, that God will open their eyes, allow them to see the truth, that they can make a decision that is not so biased and actually twisted by Satan's influences, that it can be a free kind of a decision for Christ. I don't think that a person can really make that kind of a decision until they have been set free from the blinding influence of Satan.
Who's in charge really of the planet? I mean, God or Satan? How does that work exactly?
Actually, overall, God is in control. Satan has only limited power, that which God allows him to have. But yet, God is the one who puts the limits on his power, on his activities, and thus God really is in the absolute control.
How, as Christians, should we deal with a world that's turning against us? It's becoming so perverted. What's right is wrong, wrong is right. You know how that goes. Should we just stand our ground or let it take its course?
We've got to stand our ground, Stacey. The Bible talks about making the stand, and I think that we need to, and we just got to make our minds up that we're not going to yield to the world or the world system, but we're going to stand for what is right.
That would mean dying, obviously, right?
If you're here, yes. And of course, the Antichrist will have power to put to death those that refuse to take his mark or to worship him.
And that's coming soon.
Very soon. As you say, the whole mental attitude of the world is Antichrist right now. And I think even here in the United States, it's more and more obvious that people are beginning to turn their minds and hearts against Jesus Christ.
Rapidly.
Rapidly.
So the hand of God, would you say that it's still halfway on, or is it, I know it's not completely taken off, because if it was, we'd be in trouble.
Well, yes, that's true. I believe that God is not finished yet with the Christians in America, and that we still are really the main voice for God in the world today. I do believe that the hand of God is still upon the United States. We are not what God would have us to be, but yet we are closer to it than I don't know of any nation that would be closer to us. We still have more missionaries that are going out from the United States than any other country in the world. And I think of, that as long as we're still the salt to the earth. And Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth." If the salt has lost its savor, it's really good for nothing but to be cast out and trodden under the foot of man. And thus I think that if the church loses its evangelistic and missionary vision, that we won't be lasting much longer than that, because we are really the salt to the earth. And the problem is, if we're not being salty, we're going to be cast out and trodden under the foot of the fallen world around us.
What do you think about another Christian revival before the Lord comes back? Do you think we'll have one, or?
I would love to see one. And I do think that God is so gracious, it's possible that he will give one final warning, one final, you might say, throwing of the nets, and see, how many he can bring in, before he brings a close to this age that we are living in.
Is there going to be a revival after the rapture?
Well, in the book of Revelation, we do read of a great number of people that really cannot be numbered, who will refuse to take the mark of the beast, who will be martyred for their refusal to take the mark of the beast. And it is a great number of people, and they will be saved. And so I do believe that there's going to be, after the rapture of the church, probably the greatest revival in the history of the world. And but that's a hard way to go. I surely don't recommend that for anybody to figure, well, I'll wait and go that way, because not a good way to go.
Can you describe the mark of the beast and why people should not take it?
Well, the mark of the beast is, they say, is a number, 666. And many people are trying to read things into the number. It's just a mark that people are going to need to buy or to sell. And so I think that the number 6 is a important number as far as it is a number of, we say 7 is the perfect number. So it is one short of 7, and whereas it is 7 is sort of the number for Jesus. And it is interesting that in the Greek, every Greek letter has a numeric equivalent. So that if you will take the names for Jesus in Greek and total up the numeric equivalents, they're always divisible by 7. Number 6 is one short of perfection, and that's man, and it is the number of man. And so when you have the 666, you have the number of man tripled, and of course it will be a thing. I think it'll be and definitely tied together with our commercial system. And when they get to the place where they have a card or a number, and they will affix it upon your body, right hand or forehead, and I think that that's the thing you've got to steer clear of. You don't want to buy into that system, because the Bible tells us that whoever takes that mark, there's no hope for their salvation, and thus that's the one you want to totally avoid.
What would you say to the people once we've been raptured and they find this and they listen to this? What do you want to tell them?
I would say don't take the mark that the world leader is going to require people to take in order to buy and sell. Because the Bible tells us that if anybody takes that mark, that there's no hope of their salvation. So number 1, don't take the mark. And number 2, it will be martyrdom, but know that that's preferable to, eternal separation from God in hell. So I would say don't take the mark, and just don't worship the beast or his image, and take death. It's preferable to it.
How do people get their priorities straight since time is running out?
Well, I think that, it's through prayer, it's through reading the Word, and it's through keeping abreast of the conditions of the world in which we live. I think it's a tremendous wake-up call that God is giving to the church today, and it's there all around us in the world in which we live. Surely any person that has any sanity at all can see and realize that you cannot continue in the path that we're on for much longer. It's coming to an end of the road, and we need to be prepared.
If I should fly over mountains, even if I could, you are there when I rise. In the sunlight, I can see your eyes. You are there, away in the western wild, the distant horizon line. You are even there. If I climb to the sky, I'll fall into the deep. You'll reach me. Even there, your love shines everywhere. When I was born,